3. Extreme final tests. Every dark chosen one must face before the portal opens. There comes a moment in the life of every dark chosen one when the noise of the world fades, not because you found peace, but because everything you once believed in begins to unravel. It's not a quiet silence, it's a suffocating void. The signs stop appearing, the synchronicities vanish, the divine voice you used to feel gently guiding you, gone. And you're left alone in a spiritual blackout. This is not a mistake, this is not abandonment, this is the first of the 3 final tests, the test of silence. We don't talk about this enough. We romanticize awakening as if it's all light, bliss, and enlightenment. But for those who walk the path of the dark chosen ones, the ones who carry ancient codes, karmic fire, and soul missions that stretch across lifetimes, awakening is not a gentle unfolding, it's a collapse, a deconstruction, a stripping away of everything false, until nothing remains but the raw, trembling truth of who you are, without your crutches, without your masks, without your magic.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
When the universe stops speaking, it's not because you've lost your way, it's because you're being asked to find your own inner voice without leaning on signs. You're being asked to act without evidence, to choose without clarity, to trust without confirmation, and in that terrifying silence, what rises is your true will. The part of you that doesn't need validation, the part of you that doesn't need proof, the part of you that knows, not because it's been told, but because it remembers. This test can last days, weeks, years, and it will break you if you're not ready, because everything inside you will beg for something familiar. You'll want to go back to old comforts, old addictions, old distractions, but nothing will taste the same, nothing will feel like home, because the universe has pulled you into the void to initiate you, to burn away the layers that still need outside approval. This isn't punishment, this is precision. The silence is your cocoon, and what you do in that silence determines whether you emerge as a sovereign or remain a seeker. And here's the paradox: the more you try to escape it, the longer it lasts. But the moment you surrender, the moment you stop begging for answers and start listening to the emptiness itself, you begin to hear something deeper. Not a booming divine voice, not a cosmic download, but a whisper that comes from your bones, a knowing that bypasses logic, a presence that doesn't speak in words, but in frequency. You begin to realize that the silence isn't empty, it's full. It's full of tests, mirrors, and hidden doorways. It's full of the truth you were too distracted to hear when life was loud. And so you sit, you breathe, you face your thoughts, your fears, your unmet grief. You watch your ego try to rebuild itself by grasping for something, anything to hold on to, and you don't move. You stay still, you observe, and in that stillness, you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. This test is brutal because it strips you of your identity. You no longer know what to believe. You question everything, your purpose, your path, your power. But that's the point, because the portal cannot open to someone still clinging to the illusion of control. It opens only to the one who has died to who they were and become available to who they truly are. Let me ask you a question, one that only the brave can answer. Who are you when no one is watching, when no one is praising, when the divine is silent and the path ahead is dark? Can you trust yourself then? Can you love yourself then? The first final test doesn't end with a fanfare. It ends with a choice. You either collapse into despair or you rise in quiet, defiant trust. Not the trust that says, I know everything will work out, but the trust that says, even if it doesn't, I am still here. I am still choosing to walk. And that choice? That's what begins to unlock the portal. Not because you're being rewarded, but because you become ready. Ready to move not from fear, but from alignment. Ready to hold your power without needing the world to acknowledge it. Ready to walk as if the entire universe is within you. Because it is. The silence was never the absence of the divine. It was the divine removing all distractions so you could finally hear yourself. The temptation of shadows, when every fear, fantasy, and old identity returns to test your frequency. After the silence, something strange begins to happen. Just when you think you've found your footing, just when you start to feel a sliver of clarity, the shadows come back, but not in the way you expect. They don't show up as monsters under your bed or demons in the dark. They come disguised as your desires. They wear the face of your past. They whisper in familiar voices. They know exactly where your wounds are, and they know how to make your doubt. This is the second final test, the temptation of shadows. This is where the game turns into something far more subtle and dangerous. Because now you're not fighting to awaken, you're fighting to stay awake. And the battlefield is no longer outside of you, it's inside. Everything you thought you healed resurfaces. Every addiction you thought you left behind knocks on your door. Every toxic pattern, every fantasy of escape, every version of you that once felt powerful but was rooted in ego returns. Not to punish you, but to ask one question: have you really changed? The temptation comes in waves. For some, it's a seductive opportunity to go back to a lifestyle that once gave them attention, money, or control. For others, it's a voice that says, you're too tired, just give up, go numb again, it's easier. For many, it's the arrival of people or situations that mirror their old identity so perfectly it feels like fate. But it's not fate. It's a test. The universe is asking, which frequency will you choose now that you have access to both? You see, the shadows don't come to destroy you. They come to reveal your alignment. They come to see if you'll betray yourself when no one's watching. They don't care what you say you believe. They want to know what you'll do when the moment hits. Will you abandon your new self for temporary comfort? Will you trade your becoming for the illusion of safety? Will you sell your future for the familiarity of the past? This is the test that breaks the many and forges the few. Because it's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's subtle, psychological, spiritual warfare. And no one else will see it. From the outside, everything might look fine, but inside, you'll know. You'll feel the pull, the craving, the voice that says, just one more time, just this once, just until you feel better. And this is where you need to become ruthless with your integrity. Not perfect, not robotic, but sovereign. You must be able to see the shadow and not flinch, to feel the desire and not obey it. Not because you're trying to be good, but because you've chosen to be free. Free from the patterns that once owned you, free from the identities that once defined you, free from the need to be anything other than who you actually are, right here, right now. Let me ask you something brutally honest. What is the one version of you that still seduces you when you're tired, hurt, or alone? Who do you become when you're triggered, when you're scared, when you're not being seen? That version, the one that slips in and says, "Let me take over," that's the one you need to look square in the face and say, "I see you. I honor what you once did for me, but I do not serve you anymore." Because here's the truth. You cannot bring your old self through the new portal. It won't fit. The frequency is too high, and if you try to drag your wounds, your attachments, your illusions into the next level, the door will remain closed. Not because you're being punished, but because the portal isn't just a passage, it's a mirror. It reflects your true state, and only the parts of you that are aligned, whole, authentic, and integrated can pass through. This test is the universe's final check-in. Are you still controlled by the same programs, or have you rewritten your code? Are you still looking for external power, or have you claimed your inner authority? Are you still hypnotized by fantasy, or are you anchored in reality? Even when it's hard, it's not dramatic, it's surgical. The temptation of shadows exposes the exact frequency you need to upgrade. And your job is not to fight the shadow, it's to see it without becoming it. That's mastery, that's evolution, that's when the portal begins to hum. You can't force it open. You earn it, frequency by frequency, choice by choice, moment by moment. The final surrender, when the ego dies and the soul commands the body. There comes a point where the path narrows so sharply that you can no longer walk it with your mind. You can no longer navigate it with willpower, logic, or even belief. You've faced the silence. You've resisted the shadows. But now the final and most excruciating test waits for you like a doorway made of pure fire. This is not the kind of fire that burns your skin. This is the kind that burns your entire life building. This is where the third and ultimate test begins, the final surrender. Most people misunderstand surrender. They think it means giving up. They think it means weakness. But true surrender is the most powerful act a soul can make. Because it's not about handing your life over to some invisible force. It's about releasing control at the deepest level of your being. It's about allowing your soul, not your ego, to command the body. It's about saying, "I trust something deeper than my fear, deeper than my mind, deeper than the narrative I've been living." And that's terrifying. Why? Because the ego doesn't die quietly. It fights, it bargains, it screams. It tells you that if you let go, you'll lose everything, that you'll be nothing, that you'll disappear. And in many ways, that's true. You will lose the version of you that was built on trauma, survival, identity, and comparison. You will lose the part of you that needed to be seen, needed to be right, needed to control outcomes. That version must die because it was never truly you. It was a costume stitched together by fear. So now the portal stands before you, humming with a frequency so high, so ancient, so alive that your nervous system trembles just standing near it. And the only key that will unlock it is total submission. Not to something outside of you, but to the soul within you, to the eternal self, the part of you that remembers every lifetime, every mission, every vow, every truth, the part of you that is not scared, that is not small, that is not separate. But here's the catch: the ego won't surrender until it's cornered, until it has no more tricks, no more stories, no more justifications. And life will orchestrate this moment for you with brutal grace. You might lose everything you clung to. You might be betrayed. You might be humbled in public, broken in private, shattered in ways no one else sees. And in that moment, you will be asked to do the one thing your ego fears the most. Let go of the illusion that you're in control. This moment is sacred. It is holy. It is the moment where you stop fighting for your life and finally allow your life to lead you. You stop chasing purpose and become purpose. You stop reaching for power and embody power. You stop pretending to be spiritual and simply remember that you are not the one awakening. You are the awakening itself. Let me ask you the hardest question yet. What are you still afraid to lose? What identity, role, relationship, or story still defines your worth? And can you love yourself enough to let it fall away? Because make no mistake, this test doesn't come to take from you, it comes to strip away what was never yours to begin with. And when that happens, something unbelievable begins to rise. A presence, a stillness, a current that moves through your body, not as a thought or emotion, but as truth. Your movements become deliberate. Your voice carries a resonance it never had before. Your eyes hold depth, not because of what you've seen, but because of what you've let go of. And then something even more extraordinary happens. The body begins to obey the soul, not in some mystical fantasy, but in real grounded action. You speak when the soul speaks. You move when the soul moves. You no longer perform, you transmit. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer seek, you serve. And everything begins to align, not because you manipulated it, but because you finally stepped out of your own way. This is what spiritual mastery looks like. Not perfection, not enlightenment, but embodiment. Living as your soul in a human body, moment by moment, breath by breath. Letting the divine intelligence within you orchestrate your life, not because you're passive, but because you're attuned. The final surrender doesn't end with applause, it ends with silence. But this time it's not empty. It's full of presence, it's full of knowing. And in that stillness, the portal begins to open. Not because you forced it, but because you became the key. The portal opens. What happens when you step through as your true self? And then, in a moment that doesn't come with warning or fanfare, the portal opens. It doesn't look like light bursting from the sky. It doesn't feel like fireworks or divine trumpets. It feels like truth. Still, quiet, complete. It's a moment you don't chase. It meets you. It meets you when you've died to every illusion, surrendered every identity, and emptied yourself of every need to prove, fix, or become. You're not seeking anymore, you're being, and that is when the threshold reveals itself. You don't step through it with your feet, you step through it with your frequency. The portal is not a door in the sky or a gate in some distant dimension. It is a vibrational plane that only opens when your energy matches its code. And now, after facing the silence, resisting the shadows, and surrendering the ego, your code has changed. You don't just feel different, you are different. Your nervous system has recalibrated, your identity has collapsed into essence. You move like someone who trusts life, not because it always feels good, but because you've seen what happens when you don't. As you cross the threshold, you begin to notice something strange. Life responds to you differently. People pause when you speak. Opportunities align without effort. Time feels elastic. You're no longer playing the game, you're designing it. Not from ego, but from essence. Not from force, but from flow. You begin to operate from the soul's intelligence, which moves in paradoxes. It speaks in silence, acts in stillness, expands through surrender, and something even more profound happens. You stop needing to be the main character, because you realize you are not in life, life is in you. You are the mirror, the channel, the vessel, the soul that remembers its ancient role, not to dominate the world, but to awaken it. And because of that, you stop trying to save others. You stop trying to convince, debate, or perform. You simply exist in your truth, and by doing so, you activate everyone who meets you. But this isn't the peace that retreats from the world. This is the peace that walks into chaos and doesn't flinch. This is the peace that holds complexity without collapsing. This is the peace that has walked through fire and now carries flame in its eyes. You might still feel fear, but you no longer obey it. You might still feel anger, but it no longer drives you. You might still feel grief, but it no longer defines you. You are no longer ruled by emotion, you are informed by it. You are no longer stuck in thought, you can witness it. You are no longer waiting for a sign, you are the sign. And that's when you realize this was never about a portal out there, it was always about the portal in here, the one that opens when you remember who you are beneath the wounds, beneath the programming, beneath the noise. The portal is the return to your true self, the one who doesn't need to be chosen because they already chosen themselves. The one who doesn't chase purpose because they are purpose. The one who doesn't seek light because they have integrated shadow. Let me ask you one final question, the one that echoes through every timeline, every initiation, every lifetime. Now that you've become who you truly are, what will you do with your power? Because once the portal opens, there's no going back. The old world won't make sense anymore. The old games won't satisfy. The old wounds won't resonate. You've stepped onto a new timeline, a new architecture, a new law of reality. One where your frequency shapes form, your presence bends probability, and your embodiment becomes the message. You are no longer becoming, and that changes everything.